Next up, we have another powerful woman, Stephanie. Gosh, I have known Stephanie. We were pregnant at the same time. I think I mentioned that before. I'm just so excited to see where her business has come. It's been about 8 months maybe since we talked business. I did see her on the 4th of July last year in Coronado. But let's bring Stephanie on in and let's talk about her competitive advantage. Hey, Steph.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. I was listening into the last segment and it was so good. I'm like, I need to throw some fun stuff in my LinkedIn title as well. I'm fun. I can throw some fun things in there.
Oh, absolutely. Well, why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about yourself? I mean, gosh, a bio would be 30 minutes long if we read it on you, but I mean, Stephanie is just such an amazing woman, and talk to us a lot about, your position at Aristocrat as well as CEO of Her Competitive Advantage.
Yeah, thank you again so much for having me. Super excited to connect with everybody here on this call. So a little bit of my background, I was a collegiate athlete, played basketball at Arizona State almost 18 years ago now, so quite a long time. Spent 6 years as a stay-at-home mom. My husband was actually a college basketball coach after I graduated, and we were living the dream, right? Like, I loved it. The sports vortex is real, and so we were just living that dream, living all over the country. My youngest at the time, who was 4.5 months old, he's now 10 and totally fine. But every day was, is he going to live or die? We were being life flighted to Children's. It was really crazy. I had shingles at 25 because of the stress of it all. We were being life flighted constantly, and depending on weather, ambulance or by air. And in July, our research doctor was like, look, we don't know what this is. We thought it was lung disease, that he might have needed a lung transplant. We did a biopsy that came back negative. I think you guys need to move somewhere dry and warm, because I don't really know what another cold and flu season is going to look like with this breathing related condition. And so with that counsel, we picked up and moved across the country. And I remember telling my husband, I was like, I guess I have a degree, like there's no college coaching jobs open. Let me see if I can find a job. And I remember, we were on the side of the roads, like those buildings that were off the freeways. We'd be on the side of the road with 3 young kids in the car, one with an oxygen tank, 2 other young kids, 4 and under. And I'd be like, please do not hear the cars whizzing by on the freeway right now as I'm interviewing. We ended up in Vegas, got my first role. And now it's been just over 9 years. I'm currently the global vice president at Aristocrat Gaming, which is amazing. I can't say enough good things about that organization, what they do for their people. The growth that I've been able to experience there has been so amazing. The mentors I've had has really helped me across my career. But as my career progressed, I recognized a couple things. One, it is nearly impossible to find and hire top female talent. Like, it is so hard. And there's a lot of systemic issues as to why this is, right? Women apply for less jobs, especially if they don't meet every single qualification. And even in my position today, if I'm ever looking at jobs, I'm like, man, I don't have that one bullet. Should I apply? Should I not? And so, I think as women, that's just a natural thing we have. And then you compound that with things like women reply less on LinkedIn to messages, right? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to hire and look for women, at least to be able to be in my candidate pool. And I send out messages and they reply so significantly less. And so you start compounding all these things, and it's very difficult to find and hire women. And when I thought about, like, what do I actually want? I'm in finance. I can teach you how to do Excel. I can teach you how to, make a forecast, do a plan, but I can't teach you how to be all in. And all these things sports taught me. And that's really where HCA, Her Competitive Advantage, came in, is I was like, what are all these women doing, right? Holly, you played sports in college. We connect on so many levels, but definitely on that one as well, being pregnant at the same time, which is the funniest thing as well. But I just wanted to start to create this space where if companies wanted to find top female talent, which, there's definite correlation between women who played sports and women who've had success in their career, companies would have a place to do that.
Yeah, I love it because, whether you're a former athlete or a current athlete, you have a place for those people, not only just a place for people to even apply for jobs now. It's just growing so fast. It's just so intriguing. The leadership roles across the industries are just the top, 2% of women that are in those jobs played sports, right? So how have you been able to aim that acceleration for intriguing more women into those leadership roles?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a twofold question, right? We all hear the stat that Ernst & Young did. It was back in 2014 and has now been redone many, many times over. That essentially says that 94% of women who are in the C-suite played competitive sports, and over half at the collegiate level. So there's this undeniable connection between what you learn as an athlete, especially for a female, and what you're able to deliver in business, because business has so many parallels to athletics. So I think one component is helping these women understand their superpowers, because as they're graduating, as they're early in their careers, everyone they hang out with are usually athletes. And so they don't realize that not everybody's going to be all in. Not everybody's going to be decisive. Not everybody's going to be willing to be a team player. And so when you start to recognize what differentiates you, it gives you a competitive advantage to be able to leverage as you have more opportunities, and even mentoring other people, giving them those tools as well. So I think one component is that. And then secondarily is having businesses open their mind to, I'm all about hiring the best candidate at the end of the day, right? Like, hire who is the best candidate, but give people an opportunity to have a seat at the table, to be able to interview. Like, I met with actually someone at one of the big sports organizations here in Las Vegas, and she was like, I'm so sick of going to HR and them only having one type of candidate. And I'm like, where are you sourcing them from? Where are you looking? We're not working hard enough to find these people. And so women on one side need to apply more, need to respond more on LinkedIn, need to lean into their superpower, whether that's through sports or music or whatever that is, those learnings from their childhood. And organizations need to be willing to take a shot on this potential and see, even if they can't quite articulate it yet themselves, that they can see that potential in them as well.
Yeah. Stephanie, I'm curious, are there particular sports where you see these attributes more that people are looking for in their candidates?
Yeah, I get this question actually quite often, because people are like, oh, if it's a team sport versus an individual sport, and there's different learnings across the board. But I think when you really take a step back and look at sports, and I'll give basketball analogies because I played basketball, so it's a lot easier for me to make really clear parallels. But, thinking about every scouting report we did, whether it was basketball, volleyball, track, like, you had scouting reports, you understood, you studied your competition, right? You understood the plays they were going to do, and you decided how you were going to counter those plays. And in the game, when you saw them happening in real time, or as they're setting it up, you would call it out. And so you could defend it appropriately or attack it offensively, right? And so that's literally a business case at the end of the day. Like, at the core of what it is, that's a business case. And when we as athletes start to realize that we actually have a little bit more experience than we thought, there's so much power behind that. So I don't think necessarily one sport gives you something better than another. They're all so different. But that ability to train individually and be on a team, whether you're playing solo or, in a collective group, is so powerful.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because it's like, I think that as an athlete, you inherently have these different skills, right? Like, so I played volleyball. So every time you get blocked, that's a no, and every time you get a kill, that's a yes. And if you do that 3 times out of 10, then you're successful, right? Just like softball or baseball or whatever the case might be. But I think that we can understand that as athletes, where, like, I have women who come onto my team and they're really afraid to be in sales, right? But like, really, everybody's in sales every single day, because you're getting your kids to do what you want them to do, right? So you literally have to enroll them in that. So I think that it's really great that we can identify this, because we have talked about that. I forget what you call it, but there's a time after athlete graduates before they actually figure out what they're going to do. What do you call that?
The lost years.
The lost years. There you go. Yeah. That's your book title that she's going to be writing, or something like that.
Yes.
So how do you speed up that process for these women that you're working with?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the lost years essentially is, right, you've had, and anyone can go through the lost years at any point in their life, but specifically I'll hit on the sports impact. So you have a coach, a team, clear direction, really this goal that you're driving to every single day. And all of a sudden overnight, that is completely gone. And so you have to refine yourself. You have to discover who's going to be your next coach. What are you going to do? This whole identity that you've had for so long is gone in an instant. And even if you know exactly who you want to be and what you want to do, you will go through a component of the lost years. In simple terms, like learning to eat again, right? Like the amount of calories I could consume as an athlete is significantly different than the amount of calories I can consume today. And so learning that balance and those fundamental things, like you're literally a new person again. You have to be willing to fail in such a unique way and do things that you've never done. But to your question, like the way you shorten the lost years and what we found, and I've met with almost 1,000 athletes at this point and heard all their stories, and every single one of them is the same, right? Like the identity that they've had, it's gone, all the things, and the length of the lost years is 100% dependent on how quickly you can be all in on something else. Because as an athlete, we are our best selves when we're all in on something, right? Otherwise, we're just this ball of potential sitting there. And we are not our best selves in those scenarios. When we don't have a place to adequately put our potential, our drive, etc., it becomes really difficult for us to operate. And that's where you see, people long after they're done playing, still not really doing anything because they never were able to figure that out. And what we also found was the longer you're in the lost years, the harder it is to pull yourself out. So you almost need someone to rescue you or recruit you because that feels like home, especially as a college athlete. Like you've been recruited before, it feels normal to be able to save you from that. And Business Insider actually came out with an article that said if you graduate underemployed or unemployed, you'll remain that for over 10 years and may never find a college level job. So it actually matters what we're doing as we're graduating, and it puts us back and it costs us a lot of money. Even if we do get a college level job later, usually it's not paying as much. And it's just a ripple effect that costs us as women a ton of money. We also did a study on our end at HCA and found that 75% of collegiate female athletes today are graduating without a job. For perspective, the national average is 4%. So that's terrible. And there's a lot of systemic barriers. We need like a whole segment just to unpack why that's going on. But HCA, we're trying to correct that from the bottom up.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about this before too, like the internship, even just for an athlete, female or male, it's hard for them to do internships because of their, their workout schedules and all that kind of stuff. And then you have like these women who may be on the cusp of like, oh, I could play longer. I'd have to move to Europe possibly, but I could play longer. And so that kind of like stretches out the time. I mean, I even have a gal right now. She played volleyball she's on our team here at Appreciation Financial. She played volleyball at the University of Oregon and then at the University of Hawaii. And she's over in Sweden right now playing, but kind of like she's on pause with her career because she's still playing volleyball. This has been a dream of hers. And luckily, she has women in her life who can coach and help her get recruited for something else. You know what I mean? But not everybody has that. Allie, what were you going to ask? I think I interrupted you.
Yeah, I along those lines of, I mean, it can be terrifying. I wasn't a collegiate athlete. I played softball through high school, but I did play a club sport. I was a water skier in college.
I love that. 2 skis or 1?
Mainly 2. So I did jump, which takes 2 skis.
Yeah.
And then wakeboarding. And it's terrifying. So how do you develop these athletes to be connected with jobs that, show or they know their skills and they understand their superpowers? What does it look like in that development process?
Yeah, so we're just getting started, but we're doing a couple things. We just launched our first masterclass with Nikki Fargas. She's also on our board, president of the Las Vegas Aces. Last week, I think it's been a week. It's like every time's flying by. But essentially, that see her beam, her mentality is so big. And one thing that Nikki said was, and a lot of people wouldn't know, she had a ton of jobs in between graduation, coaching, or graduation and coaching, right? Like she didn't just roll out of bed after graduation at, one of the most successful coaches in the country. She tried a lot of different things during that transitionary period that were right for her at the time. But the one thing she did was she did something. And I think, we started this series on LinkedIn called Dear Athlete, but it's really Dear Anybody who is looking at some transition in their life, whether that's a new job, a new, having a kid, getting married, like whatever that is. I think social media has taken the journey out of life, and the journey is where the joy is, right? Like the journey is where we're built as people. All the great skills that we want are developed in the journey. They're not developed at the top of the mountain when you're there. We don't get grit, which we would all probably say we want, or kindness or empathy from not going through anything hard. And so all these skills that we truly want, we have to enjoy the journey to achieve them and to get them and to grow them. And so, I think because social media is this instant gratification, because social media doesn't show truly the grit and the journey and the pain and the hardship and the how many times I've cried to my husband to say, am I doing the right thing? This is so hard. Entrepreneurship is so hard. I love my job. What am I doing? Like, it doesn't show any of that. It just shows the people at the top of the mountain. And so I think it's, as a society, when we can get to a place where we enjoy the journey, share the journey, experience the journey more, like we're going to have so much more success.
Yeah. And you mentioned it, like, we were talking to Indy about this because her and her husband do some work together as well. But, in order for us females to thrive, I've had a ton of coaches and mentors that were men,
Yeah.
And so can you talk a little bit, because sometimes I think we get in this feminist move that like, we don't acknowledge the fact that, I said it earlier, like behind every strong man is a woman, but behind every strong woman is a man, a husband that's doing what he's doing and being successful at home. Like I know your husband, he teaches your kids are homeschooled, right? So, I mean, without him, you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing. So can you talk a little bit about the allies, the support that it is required for you in your life with not just Adam, but other men that are in your life that are supporting you?
Yeah, I love this question. Hector Fernandez, who was our CEO at Aristocrat, just recently took another job, but I remember him very distinctively telling me early on, and he's said it in many of the things he's spoken on, is one of the most important decisions in your life is who you choose as your life partner. Whether that's a best friend because you never want to get married, or a spouse, or whatever the case may be, because what they do is really the biggest contributor and driver to anybody's success or detriment on the other side of things, right? And so, having someone who keeps the fort down at home is huge, right? Like this might be taboo, but I probably haven't done a load of laundry in like 4 years. And we have a family of 5, and the amount of time that I save not doing laundry is like unbelievable, right? So like foundational things like that, to him homeschooling the kids, but also like him not being afraid to push me and challenge me and refine me, like that is so special and invaluable, because he's the one who sees me at the most vulnerable, right? Like he's not refining me, seeing only, the good fluffy things at work. He sees like the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll call it out. And like, I just, ever since Hector mentioned who you choose as your life partner is so important, every day I look and I'm like, thank goodness I made a good choice, because not everyone can say that. But as far as like male allyship, even in my roles in corporates, et cetera, look, my business partner is a male who spends time in the college space. He challenges me every day. My boss is a male at work, a great mentor of mine. And so when I think about like the people who have leaned in as men, don't see it as like, oh, she's a woman, right? They're people who see the potential, who understand that I bring value to an organization and aren't afraid to lean in and give me opportunities to do such. And I would never be where I am today, and I still have a long ways to go and big dreams ahead, but like I would never even be where I am today without both men and women leaning into my career, leaning into my development, being willing to take shots on me, putting me in positions that stretch me, but also positions that are slam dunks, right? That delicate balance. And so, Aristocrat has been a really phenomenal place for me to experience a lot of that. I'll tell a funny story. Before Aristocrat, I was at Scientific Games, which is now Light and Wonder, in my first couple roles, I got a phone call from this guy. His name's Steve Morrison, and shout out Steve. And he called me and he's like, hey, I want you to interview for this job. And to the point of like women reply less on LinkedIn, he made a connection. He's like, hey, you're a BYU grad. I went to BYU. Like, will you just take the call type of thing? And I was like, all right. Like, if you throw something personal in there, like, I'll take the call. So he called me up. We chatted, and he was like, come on out. And it was a role in Pahrump, Nevada. And I don't know, people probably don't know the geography, but that's like an hour away. I already was having an identity crisis in the last years of like losing my stay-at-home mom status, crying on the way to work from time to time, still 2 years in. And I remember telling him, I was like, look, I don't really care what you pay me. I'm not driving to Pahrump. And he's like, well, what do you need? And I threw out some like crazy number because like, what did I care? I loved where I was at, didn't matter. And he was like, well, why do you think you deserve that? And I was like, I gave him the dumbest answer. Okay. I'm like 2 years into the workforce. Like my answer was so stupid. I won't even tell you what it is. It's so embarrassing. And he was literally like, I'm not going to go tell the CEO that. What I am going to go tell him are these 5 things, and I'll call you back. And like 5 minutes later, I got a call. He's like, done. Sign the papers. See you on Monday, basically. And he's for mine ever since, right? Like I've done consulting with him. I've, bounced ideas off I saw yesterday, and we were going back and forth. And I think that refinement and that coach, whether you've played sports or not, male or female, is so critical to your success. Like so critical.
Yeah.
That story reminded me of when India was talking about, her husband calling her out and the shift of women not getting defensive in that moment, but they're doing it because they love us. So in that moment, he was protecting you. He knew that you were valuable. And so we as women can learn to surrender to men showing up for us more. I think that's really cool. So thank you for sharing that story. Are there any women that you've worked with and connected with within your industry to empower each other?
Yeah, I mean, the gaming industry is really unique. So there's an organization called Global Gaming Women, which is incredible. And we've been part of a bunch of their educational opportunities. So they essentially have an educational arm of their organization where there's different levels, foundations all the way up through executive, and then an alumni. And a few years ago, I was fortunate enough to go to the executive one for women. It was called the W Conference. And the connections that I made there are some of my best friends in the industry. One of them actually serves on my board at HCA. And so I think what I would say about women that's so interesting, women, before we're able to trust each other, we want a background check, 12 years of work history. Like we want a reference list, 10 pages long. And men are just like, sure, I'll shoot my shot on you. Like, sure, I'll, give you an opportunity. It's just a different dynamic. And so finding those connection points with women and being vulnerable quicker, right? How do we as women become vulnerable quicker? Because what I find is women have this guard up, this defense, this perfectionism, me included, right? Like from childhood traumas or childhood experiences. And the faster we can remove that, which was what was so special about this conference, like the vulnerability was there immediately because of the things we were being asked to share, makes those connections so much stronger. And even with us knowing that, it's still difficult for us to do. So how do we find those vulnerable moments, those connection points that draw us closer to people? Because that's really what's important at the end of the day, right? Is these connections and the people we get to work with and be around.
Yeah. Well, up next, we're going to have Sandra Yancey. She's the founder of eWomen Network. And that's something that I do want to invite you to, Stephanie, because I think that there are networking opportunities, especially like you're talking about with this conference of executives and other places where you can find that, but it isn't something that comes natural. I mean, like I'll go to a Chamber of Commerce event and I get something out of that, but it's totally different than I get whenever I'm with a group of women, right? Yeah. So I really think that is important. It is important for us to be able to be vulnerable quicker, and also for us not to care so much what other people think too. I think, we put on our makeup, we put on our suits or whatever for whatever, but if we're walking into a room of women, I mean, just from my experience, I always make sure my hair looks a little bit better. My eyebrows look a little bit better because I know that somebody in the room will be judging me. And whether I care or not, I just know it's going to be happening. Right. So I think that that's a really great point. We do need to sometimes just let down our guard and not be so dang worried about what people think when we're in those situations. So because we don't learn that through sports, for sure. We don't learn that through sports, really, because when you're on a team, you're competing against the girl next to you who might be wanting to, play that same position. So I do think that everything great that we learn from being athletes, there are some things that we do have to break down once we are getting into the workforce that may or may not serve us well, right? So we got just one question left, and I want you to tell people how they can get in touch with you. Again, we're going to have Stephanie on our podcast because there's way too much information for a 30-minute segment. Just tell us how you would promote some diversity in, business, as well as give us all of your info so people can reach out to you.
Yeah. So LinkedIn is a great way to reach out to me. Stephanie Barrett. I'm there. You can reach out via our website at joinher.com as well. My Instagram's there. We also have one for HCA as well. So definitely reach out. I do respond to my LinkedIn messages. Sometimes it's not as timely as I would like, but I definitely do respond. So thank you again so much for having me, for giving us the space to chat around these things and these important topics, because I think it's really, really important.
Absolutely. Yes. And our kids are a week apart. So Stephanie was like 20 years younger than me when she was pregnant, and she still is. But yeah, so
I'm not still pregnant, by the way.
No, she's not still pregnant, but she still is 20 years younger.
I was like, is that an announcement?
I know, but Jax, it's so fun now because when we're in Coronado for 4th of July or whatever, our kids, believe it or not, are very competitive. And so they all like to play ladder golf out in the front yard, and we have such a great time and such great family time. And I think that definitely is another connection point for us, Steph. So we definitely want to keep that up. And then we randomly run into each other at sporting events. So that's fun too.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Thanks again. Let me know. Hopefully we'll be able to connect again.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Wow. We've had so many. I mean, I am writing a page of notes for every single person that we have on. So I hope our listeners are doing the same, but definitely the lost years, talking about that. The journey is where the joy is. I mean, sometimes it doesn't feel that way, but it can if you choose to, right?
Yep. Finding understanding your superpowers, then you can go for it, because you'll know what you're going for if you know what your superpowers are.